What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and this is probably the most bizarre story about video games I've read in a long time. It involves going to college for video game design, and how those teachers are literally reprogramming students. Some of the language in this article is outright shocking, to be honest with you. As somebody who enjoys video games, but often wonders how we got to the place we are, where game developers find themselves in such this adversarial relationship with the consumer. Little pieces like this seem to shine a lot of light on it. I'm going to ask if you can to watch this video, and if you're interested, remember to leave a like on it and a comment down below, but also share this out, because people need to see how university professors are literally referring to students and video game players as people that need to be deprogrammed, de-radicalized. They use these type of words for a reason. It's because they're essentially saying, like, they're trying to put gamers that they don't like in the same category as, people that wear those vests that go boom. This article was an interview with professors at a particular college. It ran on The Verge yesterday, so it's going to have a particular opinion. But here we go. Gigi comes to the classroom. Students used to be blank slates. Now they arrive with agendas. The whole article is written as if these professors are sad that people have their own ideas in the first place, and now they treat those ideas as something that needs to be deprogrammed. Now, it talks off by talking about a shocking thing that happened to a teacher. Ruberg, a UC Irvine assistant professor in the Department of Informatics, was teaching a games and society. Was November 2017. The course was required class taught to 260 students, the majority of which were typically male freshmen. Ruberg kept a strict no screens policy in their class, an easy enough ask to keep students from texting or scrolling through Instagram, but also, of course, to prevent people from recording. What you'll see soon is some hilarity. An easy enough task to keep students texting or scrolling through Instagram, but this was different. A dozen or so people holding up their phones, recording their lecture on gender without even the effort of hiding it. The class felt strangely fuller. Ruberg paused, reminded students of the policy, and assumed they would put them away. They kept their cameras trained on her. On a hunch, Ruberg asked the TA for a head count. The final number, 11 extra bodies. The intruders had made that part easy. They took the day's pop quiz under fake names along with everyone else. Ruberg's experience was unnerving for many reasons, but above all, one thing was clear. This was a coordinated effort. Yeah, it's funny how, oh, God, I hope you share this out with people. This whole article makes me uncomfortable. Imagine sending your kids to this school where a teacher is so afraid of the things that they're saying getting put out in the public space that they have this kind of policy. Make no mistake, that's what it's about. In the 5 years since GG, since sites like YouTube, Reddit, Twitter shifted power dynamics from student and the teacher. The campaign turned, the culture battle paved the way for bad people to coordinate and systemically target people. Yeah. We've heard it all before. Gamers bad. And then they refer to the hilarious article on the New York Times about video gamers as well. But that's not what I want to talk about. Now educators face new challenges, teaching responsibly while also safeguarding themselves from the very kids they hope to help. So these teachers, by the way, teaching at a California university, is afraid of their students recording things that they say. You develop the self-preservation intuition. You have to know what's happening so that you know how to protect yourself. As misinformation continues to, and here's the word again, make kids radical. Teachers are also grappling with helping their students unlearn incorrect information, according to them, of course. It has made a lot of us teachers more cautious, they say. We want to challenge our students to explore new ways of thinking, to see the cultural meaning and power of video games, but we're understandably anxious and even scared about the possible results. Imagine that. Imagine being a professor who's afraid of your teaching getting out in the public eye. That sounds like somebody who's teaching something they're ashamed of or that they know isn't correct. This teacher then talks about how they spent the next few days patrolling campus Reddit communities for the material, hoping or in fear that it would be out there. I'm watching out for potential problems. It makes me sad to say that because I truly love teaching undergrads. But it's hard to tell when you're teaching a student who is open to new perspectives and when you're teaching someone who has the potential to do harm. Are you joking? Let me translate that. It's hard to tell if I'll get a student that will blindly consume the garbage I'm spewing or somebody that might push back. The internet as a whole opens up impressionable kids to toxic beliefs, whether it's forum culture or online multiplayer. And again, they use the R word here, is an ongoing problem on platforms like YouTube. By the way, make sure that if you haven't already, that you like this video and then you leave a comment down below. Definitely don't share it with a friend because that could be doing harm. YouTube reviewers can easily tumble down the rabbit holes thanks to the content's algorithm. If there are any lessons to be learned about GG, from how recognized bad faith actors or steps on how to protect yourself, to failings in law enforcement or therapy focused on the internet. Then they go to Steve Wilcox, who teaches game design development at Wilfrid Laurier. Now, remember, this is the college that got outed by Lindsay Shepard a year or two ago. Several months ago, he spoke to the president of his union about how they were preparing to tackle topics like the ideological radicalization and information. His takeaway, I do not think they were really prepared because this isn't something that colleges need to worry about. That's the thing. This is coming from somebody who wants to program their students, not to challenge them and have them grow. How we talk about these issues now, he adds, is often in the context of freedom of speech and expression. The argument that conservatives are being discriminated against and people with otherwise odious views, oh yeah, you put those two in the same group, huh? About society, that fails to recognize that the society is already deplatforming women, POCs. And yeah, I don't think so. Society is propping those folks up, let's be honest. It's a problem that goes beyond just topics specific to the gaming industry, extending to topics like feminism. Suddenly, everyone who watches Jordan Peterson videos thinks they know what postmodernism is, says Emma Vossen, a postdoctoral fellow with a PhD in gender and games. By the way, you have a PhD in gender. What is that exactly? You have a PhD in that? What kind of clown college are you attending? And then you just tack on games? Why? These two things... I'm sure this is somebody that walks around demanding everyone calls her doctor, too. These problems with students are not about disagreements. It's not even about kids acting out, but rather mean people in the classroom who have tapped into social media as a powerful tool. Many educators can't grasp that. This is about students who could potentially access a bad movement that's circling around you and use it against you. This is about being afraid to give bad marks to a student because they might go to their favorite YouTuber with a bit of personal information. Has that ever happened? This is, again, at best a straw man, and at worst just outright... I mean, imagine being a college professor and thinking like this. Imagine paying $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year to some of these colleges and have professors that are literally afraid of your students who might challenge their ideas. Every word you say can be taken out of context, twisted, and used against you. Well, why not record every single lecture you give and upload it in context then? Especially if you're accepting public funds, I'm starting to think that this is something we should be requiring anyway. Deprogramming is the common question on educators' minds. But some say steps need to be taken preemptively. It's easier to circumvent poisonous thinking rather than scramble to find an antidote for it. The issue is that they have preconceived way of interpreting information, which then shapes how they interpret the data, says Wilcox. You just can't combat bad ideas with stats and hard facts. Yes, you can. If we start teaching students the basics of feminism at a very young age, Wilcox says, they will have a far better appreciation on how to different perspectives will lead to different What? Remember, these are video game professors, professors that talk about video games that are worried about this. Even at its worst, the educators the Verge spoke to, they believe change is possible. There are still young people that they're teaching. Imagine, these teachers to me sound like cowards. They sound like people who don't even believe strongly in the things that they teach. I can't imagine being a professor and then being worried about critique about what I'm teaching. The behavior and games culture is sort of this microcosm of behavior and larger culture. Gamers are not inherently bad, but much of the issue as an educator comes from the battle with what she calls living in an anti-intellectual time. People will say education is brainwashing, but isn't this person this person's entire point is that they're frustrated that people come into their class with preconceived notions or their own opinions? It sounds like this person wants to be teaching kindergartners, not college students. Figures like Peterson or Lindsay Shepard will pose human rights discussions as one with two sides rather than accepting that all people deserve basic rights. There's just an outright lie about what either one of them said. To combat this, Vossen will play leftist videos in her class from YouTubers like ContraPoints. I think that sadly, at the end of the day, we can't actually change anyone's mind, Vossen says, but we can present alternative options. So you're playing like what would appear to me as like propaganda videos, at least videos of a particular persuasion, and you're lamenting the fact that you can't make people think what you want. Is it any wonder why modern day game developers talk the way that they do, and they talk down to the rest of us the way that they do? I mean, they think that they're better than you. Wilcox says that overwhelmingly masculine, anti-political, anti-education tone come from those spaces in games already dissuades marginalized groups from entering the profession in the first place. Yeah, no, it doesn't. The idea that, actually, there's another quote up here earlier that I thought was hilarious, where basically one of the professors is lamenting that the students view game development as a technical thing. Hold on, where is this? Yeah, here we go. Ruberg's teaching bases largely on the intersection of technology and society with an eye on games. Let me translate that to you. I use video games to push my beliefs on young, impressionable minds. Video games are the avenue I use, but I'm not really interested in them. Part of the pushback, Ruberg believes, is because game dev students are resistant to the idea that cultural issues should have an impact on what some consider a very technical job. So right there, this professor is letting you know how they believe. They believe that social issues absolutely should be part of video games, and that anyone who disagrees with them is incorrect. For some of the most problematic kids, however, the root cause is far worse. These students have been radicalized. I mean, the language that these people use is exceedingly more and more like just absurd. So the problem ahead is a fickle one that requires a large look at the bias in culture and more broadly society. The culture's already there, regardless of whether someone uses talking points in my classroom. So essentially what we have is a game development professor lamenting that students might be more educated on particular issues in society. Now, you're talking about graduate students here in some cases. These students could be anywhere between, 23 and 30 or 40. Yeah, I'm not surprised that they have opinions about what's going on around them. It's pretty telling that you're afraid of people having any education on these issues ahead of time. You're afraid that in your video game development program, You might have video game developers who just want to focus on video games. Imagine that. I mean, I know that a lot of development, to be honest with you, most of development, video game development, has nothing to do with story or narrative or any of this stuff. And having a PhD in gender, I can't imagine that helping in any way when you develop video games. But to hear about how these game dev professors talk about their students tells you a lot about the type of people that probably do well in their classes and get little blue check marks on Twitter and get jobs at big game dev companies, and those that don't do well. Is their opinion of them, you can pretty much tell if you drink the Kool-Aid, you'll do well. And if you don't, they're literally afraid of you. Come on, gamers, stop being so scary. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon. Hey, if you're still hanging out, there's a subscribe button right on the screen right now. Make sure to click that, turn notifications on. And if you want to see the next video, that should also be hovering around the screen. Thanks so much for watching this and for supporting the channel. What are you waiting for? Subscribe and, turn on notifications and like the video.